They held a mock execution for me.
What?
Yeah, they blindfolded me, put me on the knees, put my head forward, and put a pistol to my head.
Who
Cocked the pistol, put it to my head.
who's doing this?
This is the Syrians.
One of the biggest, most prominent things of your career is Bravo 20. And that's what you alluded to at the start. You have the world record, don't you? Well, you can probably explain it better than I can. What's the?
It's the longest escape and evasion within military history, and certainly within the SAS. I had to walk over 200 miles in 8 nights. During the day, I had to hide, and basically there wasn't really anywhere to hide. It was on the desert floor. There was no vegetation or nothing, so I'd be looking for a hollow. It was the worst winter Iraq had had for 30 years. Everybody thinks of the desert. You think of, hot, really hot days, hot nights, but it wasn't. It was below zero during the day and at night. And just to back that up, two of my colleagues died of hypothermia. They succumbed to the cold, and I was with one when he died. So what that did for my escape was I knew I had to lie still on the desert floor and I couldn't move. And all I did was just lie there shivering. I wanted to sleep, and throughout that period of the week, I might nod off, but I used to wake up shaking violently because that's your body's mechanism to
Response.
keep you. Yeah, the first night we were on the run, we'd been contacted, and there was the Iraqi army were trying to find us. The patrol was split up, and I was with two other colleagues, and it got to about 5 o'clock in the morning as we were making our escape. We'd covered some 50 mile that night with bell kits and weapons.
What are you doing there? What are you placed there for first? I'm just trying to paint a picture.
Basically, the patrol was tasked with going in and putting an observation post on a main highway, because what Saddam was doing was sending his Scud missiles, the ballistic missiles, onto the border with Syria and then popping them into Israel. And they were firing over. Now, we were tasked to put an observation point in. As soon as we saw one of the Scuds, we would then call in coalition aircraft to destroy that. Now, because our intel, the information and intelligence was basically nothing, the road we went into was just a series of tracks, and we knew a Scud wouldn't be driving down that road. So it was a waste of time being there. Then we got compromised by a young goat herder who then brought in the Iraqi army. They challenged us. We had a firefight. We dropped a fair few of them, and then we knew we'd been blown, so we had to make our escape. And the only way out was either to walk south through Saudi Arabia, you would have to walk through the Iraqi army, because that's where they were lined up on the border. So we decided to head to Syria, and there was a better chance of crossing over there. Now, the patrol was split up by accident. I ended up in a tank berm at about 5 o'clock in the morning. A tank berm is, if you can imagine, a three-sided piece of earth constructed where the earth's pushed up and a tank can drive in. It gives it protection from three sides, and it can fire out of that.
Right.
Well, a tank had actually been in there, and it had subsided, and it had made it like a natural ditch. So I got the guys into the ditch, and we lay there. There was a really high wind chill factor. It was blowing. This clouds was black as the ace of spades, and I can remember just lying there freezing, thinking, Jesus, we're going to be in big trouble here, because we lost all our kit and everything else. And then I got pins and needles on my face, and when I opened my face, I was covered in snow, and I'm in the desert, no kit, can't move, and it's snowing. Then it started to rain, so then this ditch started, was filling with mud, and we were just covered. Couldn't feel my hands or my feet or anything like that. And then we spotted, there was, in the distance, about 800 meters away, there was a small box-bodied vehicle or a building, but with a large mast, but there was Iraqi soldiers running around it. And I knew if one of them needed to go to a toilet, because of their culture, they'll walk a long distance to get a bit of cover, and this is the only cover. So we lay and watched them. But the weather just deteriorated. It's like I say, it started raining, snowing, blowing, and then basically it got that bad where we couldn't see this building. I kept the guys in it, and then at 6 o'clock, that's when it hit me how bad we were. When I came to stand up, it was as if we'd aged. I think I was probably 28 at the time. felt like, a 70-year-old guy riddled with arthritis. My knees, couldn't feel my feet, my hands, couldn't pick my rifle up. And everything, it was bad.
Was
And
this the first night of
yeah,
the?
first night of being on the run after the contact, we walked all the way through that night, and then this is the next day.
So you've still got everything to come at this
Oh
point.
yeah, God, yeah. I mean, over a period of time, obviously that night I lost Vince through hypothermia. He died. Then I was split up with the other guy that I was with, and then I had another 6 days by myself, following the river Euphrates to the border. Then, when I eventually got across the border, um, I got to a family who gave me some water, and then I got a lift into town off a Syrian farmer, but he tried to hand me over to a lynch mob to take me back into Iraq. So there was another fight there. I eventually got to the secret police, and then they took me to Damascus. But in between that, um, we were in this large valley when I was getting handed over, and they held a mock execution for me.
What?
Yeah, they blindfolded me, put me on the knees, put my head forward, and put a pistol to my head. Cocked the pistol, put it to my head.
Who's doing this?
This is the Syrians, because these Syrian police that were driving me to this rendezvous with the secret police, they live on the border. Now, what you've got to understand is all these borders were put in during the First World War.
Right.
And a lot of the Middle East, it's tribal. And it's, then when they split it up into different countries, your cousins are now Iraqis, you're a Syrian, but they're still my cousins. And they kept going backwards and forwards over the border to see their cousins. Now, this guy, this farmer, he knew, obviously, I was coalition, but he wanted to take me back to Iraq to hand them over to his Iraqi cousins. So there was a bit of a scrap, and I was running down a street, ended up with this into a police station, and they then, over a period of time, were transporting me back to Damascus, and this is where it happened. So they were just pulling the piss, these guys, just to get, to show that they could if they wanted.
That they're in control, sort of thing.
And then I was handed over to them, and then I was driven into Damascus, and then I was held there for 3 days before they got me to Riyadh, and then back to my squadron. Now, when I'd crossed over the border into Syria, I was told that there was a tank berm or a tank gully, and it's like a tank trap, but there was nothing like that there. And I thought this Danet wire, like razor wire, was a false border because of the war. So I kept walking. But when I'd come to after passing out, there was a house on a hill, and I got there, and I thought, well, if they're Iraqis, I'll do whatever I have to do, but I need water. As it was, there were Syrians. They gave me water and some like sweet tea, which like banged me up. And that's when I took my socks off to see what my feet were like. And you'd think somebody had a Black & Decker on the soles. Well, my soles of feet didn't exist. All around my heels, all my toes had gone. The socks were like bloodied, like, matted with shite. There was pus everywhere. And I knew I was in shit state. But when I got to so one thing, I'm skipping here, but all the physical damage was done in Iraq. Because in my head, I knew if I get across that border, I'm safe.
Yeah.
Once I'm in Syria, that's it. It's done.
Is it because I'm just going to dumb it down, is it because there was a war between Iraq and Syria? Is that right or not?
Oh, no. The Iraq, it was, Iraq was involved with Kuwait.
Right.
But Syria wasn't involved with the conflict at this point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was nothing happening there. And also the president of Syria had said any coalition air crew that are shot down in Syrian airspace and they parachute out, they'll be handed back. So when I got in there, I expected, once I crossed that border and I knew I was in Syria, I was like, I'm free. I've done it. I've made it. But then when I got that lift in with that farmer, all the psychological problems happened there and then. He then is trying to take me back into Iraq. There was a lynch mob after me. Then the police held the mock execution, and that really screwed my head.
I bet.
Over a short period of time. And then when I was handed over to the secret police, we were going down a very famous valley. It's in the middle of, it's from the Iraq border to Damascus. These guys never told me where they were going to take me. They'd blanked off all the speedos, the clocks and everything. And then there was a big sign in front. And they allowed me to see it because they knew what was on it. And as I'm driving down, I'm looking, and on the sign, all it said was Baghdad. And then this guy next to me went, yeah, we're Iraqis and you're going to Baghdad. Honestly, I felt like my arse had gone through the back seat and it was trailing along that tarmac. So in my head, I'm like, right, okay, you've been tricked. You're going to Baghdad. So they blindfolded me again. And as I'm sitting there, I started running through, only for my own self-well-being. Thought next step is you're going to go into a town. You'll go into a camp. The door will open. You're going to get dragged out. You're going to get beaten for a bit. They're going to kick the shit out of you. So, and I kept running through that, so it wasn't going to be a surprise. They're going to drag you into a facility, probably downstairs. You'll get put into a cell. You're going to be in there by yourself. You can gather your thoughts. A couple of them will come in, probably give you another beating, carry you out, go into an interrogation room, start thinking your story. So as I'm sitting there, I'm running through this, trying to gather strength, because again, it was like my weakness. And as it was, we ended up in the outskirts of Damascus, and the secret police who then took me into their camp couldn't do enough for me. And I'm like, what the fuck? And all of these guys were doing was having a joke, but it was going across the top of my head.
But you're not in a position to take a joke at that point, are you? You've been broken mentally and physically. And
well, things get lighter. So what happened was, when you're propped up against the wall at 45 degrees, your back's breaking, your hands are breaking. If you try to collapse, you're put back into that position. When you're sitting with your hands in your head, with your legs crossed, it's breaking, and you're awake throughout. There's no respite or anything. It's horrible.